And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is James Knowles coming at you for the RBLR Sports Podcast. I'm here tonight, as usual, with my co-host, Carlos. How are you doing, Carlos, this Thursday evening that we are recording?
James, I'm doing well. Sitting here in my apartment. Excited to talk Rowdies. Excited to talk about USL. It's I don't know. I don't know why it didn't really hit me until we just talked about it a couple minutes ago. But I mean, the season opener is just over a week away. Like, that's so exciting. I've been tweeting about it. I started doing a little countdown, thread on my Twitter. But to think it's next Saturday is crazy. I mean, it feels like not that long ago that I was watching that game that lost against Louisville in the conference final. So I don't know. I feel ready to go. I'm so excited to talk Rowdies again. I'm so excited to have a game to talk about really soon. It's just exciting times, and the state of Georgetown basketball up here in DC is not great. We lost by 40 yesterday, so I'm really excited to have a team that has some good expectations behind it going into the season, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. But how are you doing, James? Before we get into any of that, any of what we're gonna talk about, what's going on down there?
Not much. We are also, just like you, waiting for the games to get going. There is preseason, of course.
Yep.
Carlos, we have a couple of preseason scores that you wanted to highlight, and we can do that here. I attended the game against Montreal. It was a 2-1 loss.
Yep.
I want to point out it's preseason, and it doesn't really matter in terms of the scoring. I think that it's perfectly fine to lose 2-1, especially to an MLS team. I think that we looked pretty good. The goal that we scored was an interesting little pattern that hopefully I think we might see develop between Dayon Harris coming in from the right and finding Cal Jennings. Let's hope they gel, and we can cross their fingers to see more of that coming up here. But Carlos, would you take us through the other ones that neither of us was able to attend because unfortunately these were not similar types of events?
Yeah. The next game that pops up on the schedule is that game against, I think the full name is Soccer Institute at Montverde Academy. Random little preseason game that I feel like always happens every season at this point. It's happened the past couple seasons. That game ended in a 2-2 draw with a goal from Lucky Mkosana and a goal from JJ Williams. Actually, I believe it might be his first goal of the preseason, as far as I know. A penalty earned by Connor Antley, who, as you'll hear based on this next game, has been getting really involved in the attack. So maybe someone to keep an eye on. Antley was, I guess, last season always kind of involved in the attack, but maybe a little more so this season. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. But on that note, that next preseason game, the most recent one, was at South Georgia Tormenta, the USL League One champions last year. So really, really good squad and a team that we've played for the past couple preseasons. That game ended in a 3-1 win with 2 goals from Connor Antley and a goal from Forrest Lasso off of a header on a set piece from Lewis Hilton. So good to see Lasso getting back into his classic form. Again, he's the type of guy that's obviously a very physical and imposing presence, and a guy with that physical stature. If he can get up there and score a couple goals every once in a while off corners, off set pieces, it's going to be invaluable. I'm really, really excited to see that form keep up going into the season. So that being said, those are the updated preseason game record and score sheet. Again, like James mentioned, it's hard to tell really what these score lines mean. It's pretty early. It's just a matter of getting some players' minutes and some game time. So really, really excited. As far as the last 2 preseason games, James, that second to last game against Orlando City B was canceled, and the last one is tomorrow at USF, if I'm not mistaken. Or not, I don't think it's at USF, but it's against USF somewhere in the Tampa area. That'll be the last preseason game tomorrow. Actually, when this comes out, it'll be today. So that'll be the end of preseason. And with that comes the beginning of the regular season, James. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Like you said earlier, I don't know how we got here so fast because we had, shows along the way where we weren't necessarily like, we weren't trying to stall for time, so to speak, but it was a lot of stuff that wasn't necessarily germane to the Rowdies, and that's fine. During the off season, you're not going to have news every single week, but yeah, somehow we are at the point where there is news coming up like this week, 4 games, and I'm just really taken aback by this. I hope that everything goes well in terms of us getting all of our preseason jitters out of the way. I think that the preseason is just for us getting back up to fitness, and then once we have that fitness, hopefully we'll be ready to go. So yeah, we're not going to do our first game preview this week. That'll be next week. Yep. So Carlos, we will leave that out of the way. What we're going to do this week instead is go through something that I think is a little interesting for fans of the Tampa Bay Rowdies, because Carlos, the way that this was presented to me and you, it was like, there is going to be this whole new slate of teams that we're playing this year that we don't usually play every year. Right. And it's almost as if this conference that we are coming up against, they don't really exist all the time. But in the 2023 season, they are going to exist. So this week, we are going to do a preview of all the teams out west, and we are going to make sure that everybody at least knows, what their outlook is at this point. It might not be the most accurate. It's going to be with a little bit of help from an infamous USL voice, and we will obviously get to that when we get to the actual, the talking points here. But yeah, I think that it'll be nice to give everybody a refresher for what they should expect from the teams out west, and also to say, as I just said, these teams do exist, and we're going to have to deal with them.
Yeah, that's a really funny way of putting it. I feel like obviously as a Rowdies fan, a lot of these teams just don't really cross your mind ever. But as you said, we're going to be playing every team from the Western Conference at least once this year, whether it's home or away. And it's going to be really, really fun to get to know some of these teams that we otherwise, might not ever come across. There's some teams in particular that are just not very good, and you don't really see them having a shot at making it, to the USL Championship where we would otherwise meet them, hopefully, right? So I think it's going to be a good opportunity for everybody, and honestly for myself, to get a little more familiar with some of our opponents this year out west.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Carlos, are you ready to get into it? I think that we have given everybody all of the preview that they need for the previews that we're going through. So right before we get started, I want to say please like and subscribe to us on YouTube and Facebook, Instagram, Twitter as well. We are on all of those platforms. And please follow us at RBLR Sports, of course. So now off we go out west, Carlos. Let's start here with the first team that we're going to be playing from the Western Conference. It was actually done up by our producer Eureka in the scheduling order that we are going to be dealing with these teams. So the first team from out west is going to be Orange County. We will play them on March 18th away. That's in California, obviously. And just top line, I don't know that they've improved a ton off of this past season in 2022. So Carlos, if you could take us into the what the trends are, what it's looking like, and then we'll get into a little bit more detail with their roster.
Yeah, Orange County it should be a name that is infamous in the minds of Tampa Bay Rowdies fans. But as far as how they're doing now, not too hot. Last year we saw them finish last place in the Western Conference. They did not do very well at all. USL Tactics, our friend, has their playoff odds listed at 47%, which is 8th in the conference. So a marginal improvement from last year. Some of their key losses include their center back Michael Orozco, who I recall being one of their better defenders, and a really key player on their team. So that's a huge loss for them if they wanted any chance of really improving and maintaining a core to build upon. They also lost forward Eric Torres and a goalkeeper in Patrick Rutkowski. But they did add some players, James. They replaced Orozco with Andrew Fox, the center back, as well as Owen Lamb, a fullback, and another forward in Mark McNulty. So they did replace some of their players that departed, but as far as quality, your guess is as good as mine as for some of these guys, because name like Owen Lamb is not a name I'm familiar with. Andrew Fox I have heard of. So it's really kind of up in the air, I think, how much better, if at all, Orange County ends up being this season.
Yeah, I think that we were kind of, they were a team that underperformed last year compared to the season before, which you had already mentioned for the 2021 season. We don't need to rehash that any further than we have. Yeah, we saw a team that was kind of, I guess, in transition, because I feel like they still want to do this thing where they're trying to integrate a lot of youth players into their team, but they're having some difficulty with turning that into wins.
Yeah.
And the veterans on the team, the Michael Orozco, the Eric Torres, they were the ones that kind of, they were the foundation where you could add in the young players that they would like to go with. And if those guys are gone, then how do you replace them? Like you said, they have Andrew Fox, who is a USL veteran, so we're at least used to dealing with the likes of him. But yeah, Mark McNulty is a Scottish player from the lower divisions in Britain. He's been in Scotland and England, and probably played in Wales for all I know, without having looked at his career in the last 10 minutes. But yeah, I don't think that he's going to be a major improvement on what they have, unfortunately for them. But I think that in a Tampa Bay Rowdies fans' perspective, that's probably okay. So yeah, I think that it's going to be a relatively okay team. They're not going to do anything that spectacular, at least not based on the roster they have, from what I can see.
Yeah.
So with that being said, Carlos, can you take us now into the team that we will be playing on April 23rd away, still in California?
Yep. By the way, just go back on Michael Orozco real quick. I did not realize he's already 37 years old. Wow. I know he's a veteran of the game, and I've seen his name around a lot, but 37 years old, I guess not too surprising to see his name departing. I don't know. I fully don't know if that means he's retiring or anything, but I haven't heard anything about that. But I would not be surprised if that comes out sometime soon. Just random speculation there. San Diego Loyal would be our next Western Conference opponent. Again, going out west on Sunday, April 23rd. They were a good team last year, and they still appear to be a pretty good team. They finished second in the Western Conference last season. USL Tactics has their playoff odds at 95%, which is third in the conference. So a really, really good, talented challenge pretty early on in the season. And I think this is a good time to get those challenges in. Significant contrast to your Orange County, who I think is a good first Western Conference game to play out there. Kind of get the feel for that long travel and what that's going to be like. So a good first game in Orange County, but I think a really good challenge in San Diego Loyal. Some of their biggest losses includes their forward Kyle Vassell and former Tampa Bay Rowdy center midfielder Jack Blake. Fantastic midfielder in his own right. And I think he might still have his YouTube channel going. I loved watching that content when he was playing for the Rowdies. He would have his daily game day vlogs and stuff. I love that kind of stuff. So they're losing not only his talent, but his content. But they did add another center midfielder in Joe Corona, a name that is pretty familiar to USL fans, and forward Elliot Collier, which is a name I'm less familiar with. James, do you have any insight you can add to some of these players and maybe what they mean to lose or add them to the team?
Sure. Well, I'll start with Joe Corona. Joe Corona is a former U.S. men's national team player, in addition to what you have already mentioned with him having been in the USL Championship at different points in his career. So he's obviously got the quality that is someone, that ultimately plays for the national team. Keep that in mind. He is, on the downslope of his career, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to be a very good player. And that doesn't mean that he's not going to bring a lot to this team, especially in replacing a player like Jack Blake. He might not be, a similar, exactly like for like, but I think that they have plenty of quality to replace Jack Blake. And then if you maybe put Joe Corona out on the wings, where he's, I think, most regularly played in his career, he will do a lot of damage. So he's somebody that we're going to have to kind of watch like a hawk in terms of our, our defensive unit out on the field versus the Loyal. Now, Elliot Collier is a player who was with San Antonio last year. He won, obviously, the USL Championship with them. He was not their regular starter, and I think that that's why he's left. He's most likely looking for regular playing time, because I think if San Antonio could have kept him as a depth piece, they probably would have. He's a good depth piece, but if you don't want to spend most of your career as a backup, then I can understand that. Go out and get some playing time where you think you'll have a better shot. San Diego is going to be, a good place for him to do that, but it's also going to be a place where he can probably go and try and win some stuff. And I am assuming that's what he has in mind. So, yeah, Kyle Vassell and Jack Blake, different players to replace in their own right, but I don't think that these are downgrades by any means. In fact, I think that these could both, in certain ways, be considered upgrades. But with a team that was already as good as San Diego were last year, and they have a very good roster, they have a very good foundation. I think that they are only improving themselves. And if Landon Donovan, sticks around for the whole season, then we'll see how that goes. I always am worried that some team is going to come in and snap him up for San Diego. I don't really get why. Like, I don't know that he's done enough to justify that, but his name is always listed in those rumors, and it doesn't make a ton of sense to me, Carlos, but I'm not in charge of those decisions. So I'm not the one who would be hiring or firing Landon Donovan. Either way, he does seem to be good enough, to continue to win and challenge for things at this level. Like I said, he hasn't won any trophies or anything, but maybe he's on the cusp. Maybe all of these MLS teams that keep getting linked to him have seen something that you and I haven't yet. And, I guess we're probably going to see a little bit more of that this year as he continues to shape this team into his own image.
For sure. I think to summarize San Diego again, I think it just looks like a pretty talented squad. Again, they were talented last year. It looks like they've, I don't know. Again, you said maybe marginal improvement, but they were already a good team. So it should be really, really interesting to see how they play out. Again, they have a pretty good culture building over there, great fan base. I think it should be a good atmosphere when you go out there and play them. It should be a great game. So I'm excited.
It'll be fun to watch too.
Oh, for sure. Let's move on into the next team we have listed here. Our next opponent from the Western Conference will be a home game, the first home game against a Western Conference opponent against none other than Phoenix Rising FC, a team that we have now a little bit of history with, in a game that I'm sure will be thrilling as well. It's a team that, I'm trying to it's a stupid pun, but they're on the rise, Phoenix Rising. I don't know why that made me laugh. That was not funny. But they're on the come up again. They had a bit of a down season last season, James, for, I guess, the quality of club that they usually are. They finished in 10th in the conference, which is definitely not where they want to be. But USL Tactics has their playoff odds at 81% this year, which is 5th in the Western Conference. So definitely an improvement from last year, at least on paper. That being said, they did lose some of their key players in Aiden. I always forgot to say his first name. I'm going to go with Aiden Quinn, fantastic midfielder, as well as Santi Moar and Ben Lunt, their goalie. Really, really talented players, all of those guys. And it's honestly pretty huge losses. But that being said, they did bring in this is a player that really interests me, James, because I'm really confused as to what the connection is to Phoenix. But Federico Varela, a Argentinian center midfielder, right?
I have no idea how they looped him into this. I really don't.
Yeah, I believe he's Argentinian, but just looking back on his bio that I have here, he never played in Argentina. His youth career was in Celta Vigo in Spain, and he spent his career kind of jumping around Europe, most recently playing for CSKA Sofia in Bulgarian's first division. And now he's in Phoenix Rising. So, he looks like a pretty talented player just based off some of the teams he's played for. Certainly seems like he could add something to the team, and I'm honestly pretty excited to see what his talent is, what he can bring to the team.
Yeah.
I just hope he doesn't play well against Tampa Bay Rowdies. Danny Trejo, fantastic player again. He's added to the team in this offseason. Great forward who will be a fantastic addition for Phoenix, as well as goalkeeper Patrick Rakovsky. I don't know that name, James. Do you know anything about him?
Patrick Rakovsky was the guy. He was actually listed in the big offseason losses for Orange County because, if I'm not mistaken, he was the goalkeeper that started in net when we were losing to them in the final. So
that's right. I knew it sounded like I said it again. I had to go double check myself. I was like, did I just repeat a name from earlier? And I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that makes more sense. So I think that being said, Phoenix looks like a really solid team. Definitely seems like they're on the come up. They had that down season, like I said, from last year. But I think it's going to be pretty. I don't imagine them being down there for that long. It's a really good club, well-run club. I'm sure they'll be coming up again soon. But again, really interesting to see how the Federico Varela addition plays out, and what he really brings to the league and to the team. I guess he's kind of their equivalent of our Felix Schroeder. Just kind of a random connection, if there even is a connection at all. But, there's always one random offseason pickup, and I guess these are the ones for each of our teams. Any else to add on Phoenix, James?
Well, I was going to say those are some of the key signings, but those are not all the key signings. I think that those are some of the bigger ones. Yeah. I did want to highlight a couple of other names really quickly, if you will indulge me here. So,
of course.
In addition to Federico Varela, they have also brought in Emil Cuello and Rocco Rios Novo, who are two Argentinians that both grew up with American backgrounds. So Rocco Rios Novo was on loan from CA Lanús in Argentina to Atlanta United. He came in weird moments. If anybody remembers watching the CONCACAF Champions League last year, you will remember him coming up big for some just odd games. But he is a good young goalkeeper, so he'll probably be the backup to Rakowski. And then Emil Cuello is an Argentinian-born player who grew up in Utah, went to LA Galaxy, and did not continue in MLS, so now he's down here, but he's still a very good player. In addition to that, they have brought in a couple of other players. Daniel Crutzen is a defender who comes from Forge FC in the Canadian Premier League. They won 3 out of 4 championships in the history of that league. So Daniel Crutzen is a player who is used to winning and used to doing well. They also brought in center back Mohamed Traore on loan from Los Angeles FC. He's a very good player. He's very highly rated at the MLS level, so he's not obviously ready to make that jump yet as I think a 20-year-old, 21 at the most. But yeah, he's going to be somebody that we also have to worry about because he's a very good defender and getting past him is going to be difficult. And really quickly, they did also sign a couple of other MLS players who were just on the cusp. So Eddie Munhoma comes from FC Dallas, where he did not quite make the grade. Renzo Zambrano comes, I believe, from Portland Timbers, where he was right on the cusp. He made a couple of appearances for them. And Carlos Harvey is a Panamanian player who was with LA Galaxy as well. So these are all players who actually have very good backgrounds in the game and very good backgrounds in America as well. I think that they are going to make this an incredibly difficult team. They have brought in a team that is worthy of, I think, the Phoenix Rising name, so to speak. And, for as poorly as they did last year, they have a better coach this time around. Juan Guerra is going to have all of this offseason, everything
Rowdy
before them. Yes, exactly. To get this team ready. And he's got an incredible roster when you look at the USL Championship level. I think that they are going to be one of the top teams in this league again. It's recency bias that we look at Phoenix as a bad team. They're not. This is going to be a very good team. This is going to be a team like we are used to seeing from Phoenix in every year except for 2022. So just keep that in mind. We are playing them at home in our game against them. So I think that will give us the advantage. But they are going for it, I think, just as much as we are going for a trophy this season. So
yeah,
just keep it in mind.
Yeah, definitely competitors. I mean, a lot of those names not listed in our notes, but I think going back, there's some big names in there, names that can make an impact. I know you mentioned some foreign players and guys that come from overseas, including a player that I'm forgetting the name you mentioned, but Lanús is a pretty big club in Argentina. And if we're getting players from a club like that into the USL, I think it can only speak to the quality of players that are making up this league and the competitiveness that's making up this league. And so I think we should all be really excited for I guess the foreign influence coming into USL and all the players coming in from overseas. So really, really exciting stuff. Again, happy for Phoenix because I think they'll do much better. And happy for Juan Guerra because I love Juan Guerra. He was probably one of the more, in his short time here, one of the better midfielders that made up our squad. I loved watching him play. Really, really good guy. Again, short time with us, but I think made an impact on this team and I know he's going to be a really good coach out there. I know, if I'm not mistaken, he had an assistant coaching stint. Was it at Phoenix or was it somewhere else before this?
He was coaching Oakland Roots before this, and then I think that they just bought out his contract.
Okay. Yeah. So, anyway, a little bit of a homecoming for him coming up in that game against Tampa Bay Rowdies. Cool. I think we can move on to our next opponent here, James. The next Western Conference team will be an away game May 20th against Rio Grande Valley Toros. It's a team that is definitely building. I wouldn't really say they've been competitors recently, but they're building something. They did pretty well last season, James. They finished 6th in the conference with 14 wins. That being said, their playoff odds this season, according to USL Tactics, are 50%, which puts them 7th in the conference. But last season they performed pretty well. They played a close game against Colorado Springs in the quarterfinals in the Western Conference. They could be building something. They have a nice complex out there. It's a great club, great stadium, good fans. I really think they have the chance to build something, and I think they're working on some sort of long-term project to make championships happen eventually. That being said, they did lose a couple key players. Jonas Fjellberg, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, was on loan from Indy 11 this past season. He scored 6 goals in only 11 appearances, James. Pretty impressive, over 50% conversion rate based on his goals and games ratio. So I'm assuming he'll be going back to Indy 11 as his loan ends. So player to watch for Indy as well. Just random side note there. As well as a midfielder that they lost in Emilio Icaza. That name might ring a bell for some locals, as he had, I think, 1 or 2 seasons. He had at least 1 season with USF. USF kid, St. Petersburg kid, so local guy playing USL soccer. He was playing for Rio Grande Valley, had 7 goals in 45 appearances as a midfielder, but he'll be going out to Charleston Battery this season. So couple key losses in the midfield, but that being said, they did add a player in Cristiano Francois. He is a Maryland University product from Haiti. He's a winger. He also played in the midfielder. He had kind of a down season last season for El Paso Locomotive, had 1 goal in 26 games. But if you go back one more season, just based off the little bio I have here, he scored 11 goals in 31 appearances for Miami FC. So it's a player with a lot of quality, player that can add goals to the mix, player that can add speed and really tactical quality to the mix. Looks like a good passer from what I remember of him. So I think that's a great pickup for them. They also picked up Gabriel Benitez, who I know significantly less about, but maybe you know something about him, James?
Well, what I do know for RGV is I think that they're trying to do a little bit more of a local thing. So they were originally brought about, if anybody remembers, as the Houston Dynamo second team. So
right.
With that in mind, they come from an area that does have a very heavily Hispanic population. There is a lot of soccer talent there that they really don't take advantage of.
Yeah.
And I would point that first and foremost at Houston Dynamo, who don't utilize their academy at all. So kind of sucks, honestly, if you're a kid growing up in that area. But anyway, moving back to RGV, they're probably looking to try and bring on some more of the local talent themselves. And if you look through the roster, there are players who went to college locally or didn't go to college, but are from the area. And, they're trying to integrate them more. So I think that is kind of what RGV is trying to do. They're trying to make a team that is local, but also has the ability to, go and possibly challenge for some trophies. I don't think that they're there yet. They're a team that, as you said, they're building. They're almost always building at this point, but you can't do anything beforehand. It's impossible to just do it out of nothing. So they are doing what they can for the time being and building for the future along the way. If they can string a couple of players together that they can keep for a longer term, then maybe they'll have something going, but that's obviously very difficult in this league. And I don't think that this is going to be the year that they actually get to the level that they would like to anyway. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I was looking at this as a potential away game, and then I was like, wait, why would I want to go to Southern Texas in May? It's going to be extremely hot, and it's going to be, I don't know, it's not even going to be the heat that I'm used to, I don't think, in Tampa. So probably just let the team go and experience that one and watch it from my couch.
That's a good way of putting it. It does really look like a nice stadium over there, though. I don't know if you've seen pictures.
At some point, it would be good to check it out.
Maybe it looks like that's a great point. It looks like a solid place to go watch a game. So definitely worth eventually getting out there. But maybe this season not the right time. Yeah. That being said, James, this next team I think is kind of a curious one for me. Colorado Springs Switchbacks. It's a home game, May 27th. Really, really good team last season. They finished in third place in the Western Conference with 17 wins. That being said, USL Tactics has their playoff odds in conference rank at 47% and 9th, respectively. I think that's really, really interesting because this was a really good team last year. They lost a few good players that I'll mention, but they also picked up notable names that should add a lot to the team. They did lose to San Antonio in the Western Conference Final last year, and it's a team that I think has been knocking at the door of breaking through and at least getting to the final. They've been close. They've been a good team. It's really interesting what this offseason has had in store for them, and I guess really interesting to see what they can do on the field this season. They lost a forward in I'm going to butcher this name, James. Mikey Michi Ngalina, central midfielder in Cam Lindley, and forward in Elvis Amo. Good players in their own rights, but they also did add some notable players in Speedy Williams, a name all USL fans should know. They also added Patrick Segrist and James Musa to the back line unit. Really, really good players. So I don't know, James, like, what do you make of the USL Tactics playoff odds of 47%, and predicted 9th place in the conference? I think it's really interesting because it feels like they're still a pretty good team.
Yeah, I'm going to have to double check that, honestly. I don't know if those are the correct ones or if it might have been.
Yeah, and I went back and double checked.
But...
Yeah, I went back and double checked on the USL Tactics website. It has Colorado Springs at 42.9 expected points with 50% playoff odds. 5-0. Okay. So I don't know.
Well, I guess John Morrissey sees something that we might not, but at this point, yeah, I think that they are. They did lose Michi Ngalina, very good player. I think that he is off to Egypt, if I'm not mistaken. They lost Cam Lindley, also a very good player, but they made up for Cam Lindley in one of the best players in the league at his position. Speedy Williams has been in the USL Championship since, I don't know, when the New York Red Bulls were still winning this division. And he has also, he's racked up so many appearances. He starts for the Jamaican national team. The fact that he's still in the USL Championship at all, frankly, is a little weird at times. But he's going to be a huge player for them. And Patrick Segrist and James Musa are both very good players too. Those are not the only additions they've made, but maybe he just thinks that with them having lost Michi Ngalina, and they also lost Haji Berry, who left in the middle of last season. True. Yeah. So I don't know if that maybe plays a bigger role in what he sees them doing in terms of their attacking output. But I'll tell you what, if they can get Speedy Williams to do what he does everywhere, then he's going to still be setting guys up, and he's still going to be able to, make things happen. And if he can do that for whoever their striker is, it doesn't have to be a player like Michi Ngalina. It doesn't have to be a player like Haji Berry. It can be someone a lot more middling, so to speak, and they will probably be okay as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, we will get a chance to get more information on that, and I just hope that there's a little more understanding afterwards, because I still see them as a very good team. Just looking at their roster right now with their attackers, they still have Jay Chapman, who was a long-time player in MLS. They have Romario Williams, who's been in USL for a long time and a former MLS draft pick. And they also have Aaron Wheeler. So, I guess that it's not quite as strong as it has been in the past in terms of their striking core, but I don't know. Yeah. With Speedy Williams, like I said, I still think that he's going to be able to set anybody up, even if they're a much worse striker than you have in Haji Berry. And we'll just see how it turns out.
I will say it's important to know. I don't know why I totally forgot about Haji Berry, but I mean, Haji Berry, you can't really claim how much his influence was on that team. Like, he was the attacking unit. Like, this guy was probably the best player in the league past couple seasons. So I mean, I don't know why that loss slipped my mind, but I think that definitely plays a huge role in a potential drop off, because he is just like insanely talented. So, like you said, Speedy Williams is going to be a great addition, and I'm sure he'll be able to set people up with several goal scoring opportunities. But Cam Lindley was a fantastic midfielder as well. So we'll have to see if Speedy Williams can fully replace him. But again, I think that Haji Berry loss is probably up there among one of the bigger losses for a team this season.
Probably so.
So I don't know. Maybe John's formula, has a lot more at stake with Haji Berry than anybody else in the league, and that's why I dropped off so much. I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating right now, but like you said, like you hinted at, we'll have a good chance to clear some things up. Ask him about that and see what he has to say about that, because I'm sure there's a lot more tactical insight that someone like him can share. Yeah, cool. So that's Colorado Springs Switchbacks, James. The next opponent on the Western Conference schedule is a home game. I'm really excited for this one. A home game against Sacramento Republic FC. I believe this will be the first time we play them at home. The first time we play them ever? Question mark.
Good question.
Definitely the first time we played them at home, if I'm remembering correctly. It's a team that was really good last year. If you recall, it had that very, very, very fun U.S. Open Cup run. And they have a great, talented squad that was able to do that. And as far as USL went, they finished in 4th in the Western Conference with 15 wins. USL Tactics has them listed at 100% playoff odds. And they have them listed at 2nd in the predicted conference ranking.
Mm-hmm.
They lost to Colorado Springs, a team we just mentioned, in the semifinal, conference semifinal. Some of their biggest losses include Dan Casey to Motherwell, a fun team that I've been keeping up with in Scotland, by the way. Love those guys over at Motherwell. At forward, Malik Foster. They did add a replacement in Shane Wheat, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and the name that, again, should be pretty familiar to USL fans. Really talented forward in Russell Cicerone, and another center back in Jared Timmer. Kid team, maybe got a little bit better, James. Marginal improvement. I would say they're kind of where they were last year, if I have to summarize it.
Yeah, there was very little drop off for this team. Overall, I think that Dan Casey, over the course of the season, was probably one of the best defenders in the league. He was one of the really important parts of Sacramento making the U.S. Open Cup run that they did. It's very, very unfortunate, especially for those of us who are fans of the USL Championship and the Tampa Bay Rowdies in particular, that probably his worst game of the season came in the final against Orlando City, because he was at fault for 2 goals that Orlando scored. But, what are you going to do? All of the rest of his year, obviously, is the reason that he moved to Motherwell in Scotland. And, it's kind of weird, because you would think that the Scottish Premier League would be a step up, but I'm really not sure that all of the teams are. Rangers and Celtic, of course, that's a step up. But you start getting down to teams like Motherwell, Dundee United are awful. But
that's true. I actually did see there was one of those. I'm forgetting the name of the website. There's one of those websites that like uses the formulas to compile like the rankings of like best clubs to worst clubs, and it has like every single club in the world. I mean, I distinctly remember this was something that was shared to me when I first started following Motherwell, like 3 years ago, that the Rowdies and Motherwell were like next to each other. I'm forgetting like what number it was, but I think it was Motherwell was one spot ahead of the Tampa Bay Rowdies. So it's pretty comparable, at least based on that website, which I'm totally forgetting the name of. So don't trust me if you don't believe me, because I could just be making this up. But I'll have to find that and go back and double check, because those are really fascinating to me. But yeah, like you said, maybe a marginal step up, but it seems like a lateral move. But that being said, it does kind of open that door to European football. And I don't really ever see that being a negative for anybody. So good for Dan Casey. I'm happy for Motherwell. He's a really, really good player. But bringing it back to the U.S., Sacramento Republic, good team is my summary.
Well, Russell Cicerone scores wherever he goes in the championship, and I think that he is going to add something that Sacramento didn't have, especially in that game versus Orlando City. They did elsewhere in plenty of other games. Don't get me wrong. But goals are the way that you win games. Naturally, Russell Cicerone scores them in bunches. It's going to be very important that he, step up and play the role that they want him to, and I only assume that he will. So, yeah, I think that is a very shrewd move for them in the offseason.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's going to be a very good team. I think that it's another team that we're going to have to think about when they come to town. Like, how are we going to handle all of these different pieces that they have? Are we going to nullify them? We're going to see how it goes, because Sacramento usually is very well run, and I don't think that this year is going to be any different. Yeah, that's all that I've got right now. They are going to have to replace that Dan Casey, but I think that they might as well or might have already done that. And with their signing up top, then they should be ready to roll and probably go and take on the league again.
Yep, Cicerone is like you said, fantastic scorer. Yeah, I don't know. My philosophy is always, if you can score more goals than the other team, sign forwards. Yeah, I know, just random tangent. Our baseball team up here at Georgetown is struggling in pitching, but we always score like 15 runs a game. So if you can win a game 15-12, it wins a win, right? Russell Cicerone is that guy you want up top to score all those goals in this case, right?
Yeah.
Should be a really, really good team and fun to watch. So good team to keep up with in the West if you're interested in keeping up with fun soccer.
Exactly. And now, Carlos, we will take a moment to say liking and subscribing is free, but if you think that you might need some new threads coming up this year, you can always support our podcast just that little bit more by heading over to shop.rblrsports.com. There will be a link, obviously, right there. Please check it out. And if you would like 10% off of your order, please use the promo code COYR. And yeah, we've got a lot of cool designs there. Our producer Eureka puts all that together, and I think that if you do check it out, you will like it. So now, Carlos, we will finish out the rest of the West here. Can you get us going on the next team?
Of course. Yeah, your next team will be playing again at home, New Mexico United, June 10th. Yeah, they made some important additions. They're still likely middling. They finished in 5th in the conference last year. USL Tactics playoff odds sit at 66%, and their projected conference standing is 6th. So one spot lower than their standing at the end of the year this past season. Key lost in Neko Brett, fantastic forward. Again, a name that should strike horror in the hearts of USL defenders everywhere. Really, really good player. Just creates so much. So it's a huge loss for New Mexico United. In the same vein, they picked up equally talented players, an attacking midfielder, Santi Moar, former Phoenix Rising guy, and forward Greg Hurst, both fantastic players that I think will do pretty well to replace Neko Brett. I mean, Brett's a fantastic player. I mean, don't get me wrong. He is an insane talent. I think both of these guys can bring in their own talent and replace that hole pretty well. So I think New Mexico United gets a bit better with these signings. So I don't know. Maybe they stay in the same spot. The Western Conference is getting better as a whole, so I can kind of see them staying in that 5th, 6th place realm. But maybe they need one more big name to make that jump into contenders in the West.
Yeah, I think that, that they had a relatively good team, but it wasn't enough to really challenge the big boys, so to speak. And I think that, unfortunately, for the fans out in New Mexico, they're probably going to be roughly the same again. They brought in a couple of extra pieces. I think that one other player of note is Josh Dalling. He is a former Missouri State player, scored 40 goals in 82 appearances for them in the NCAA. And then when he wasn't selected to be good enough to earn one of the coveted MLS international roster slots, he signed with St. Louis City 2. So that was obviously their second team in MLS Next Pro. And despite the wacky font, he did pretty well there. So, you can turn that into a relatively good USL championship career, most likely. And I think that that's what they're banking on. Whether or not it's going to work out, who can say at this point? But that is going to be, I just see them kind of doing the same thing again. They're not going to be the greatest team. They're not going to be the worst team. But, someday, hopefully, New Mexico fans will have something to cheer about.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's a great way to summarize it. They're kind of sitting in the middle of the pack. But again, I mean, that being said, they still have the talent to, I think, potentially make an upset when you get to the playoffs. It's definitely not a team that I would be surprised to see knock off one of the bigger teams, one of the big dogs in the Western Conference. But right now, it's kind of a long shot to say that they would be like top 3 in the conference at the end of the standings. But again, potential playoff underdog that can make a good run. So worth keeping an eye on. Will be a good game for sure. But it's a game that I would hope to win, but I'm sure it'll be a close one for sure. Definitely the first time they're coming out to St. Pete. Again, I'm trying to think back if we've ever played them, and I want to say no. So always fun to play a new team. So it will be a thrilling game nonetheless. Next Western Conference team, James. El Paso Locomotive, one of my favorite names in the league. Just team names. It's awesome. We're playing them away in El Paso on June 17th. Should be a fun one. That being said, El Paso doesn't look like the most ambitious of clubs per se. They finished 8th in the conference last year. That being said, USL Tactics has their playoff odds at 42% and their projected conference rank at 11th. A not insignificant drop off from last season, according to USL Tactics. They had some big losses, including midfielder Dylan Mares, central midfielder Richie Ryan, as well as the name we mentioned earlier, center back Andrew Fox will be going out to Orange County. They did add a couple players in Mark Navarro and Bence Pavkovics, but I wouldn't be able to tell you much about them. So I don't know. I'd take a stab in the dark and say El Paso gets marginally worse, but I don't know. I really wouldn't be able to tell you much. I think this is a game that we should win. But it could also be one of those games where we go out and play at a baseball field, diamond, pitch there where we play just terribly and we lose 1-0 or something like that. So it's one of those trap games to keep an eye on because it could be one of those. But this is a team that I would hope to beat.
Yeah, I think that this is 3 points that we should be looking to get on the road. It's not going to be easy. I think that more so comes down to the conditions than it does the team. El Paso in Texas is another one of the away games that I was looking at. I would like to try and get to, some new away game every year. I think that'd be cool. So I was looking at El Paso. I was like, I've never been out in Western Texas. What's that like? Oh, well, this is in June, which is over 90 degrees on average. That is their average out there. And again, it is a different heat from what we're used to in Florida. So I was like, forget it.
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult playing conditions, and I don't think that is going to make things easy for us. But I still would like us to get 3 points probably here. I think that El Paso Locomotive is actually kind of switching up their style, let's say, and they're kind of going for youth players that they can either sign from their academy or sign from other academies and then maybe sell them on. So a real quick example is Diego Luna, who was originally in either the Real Salt Lake or San Jose Earthquake, somebody's academy. Then he left them, joins the Barca Youth Academy affiliate in Arizona.
Okay.
And there have been a lot of good players that went through there. A couple names who have even made it to the national team so far. But he was then signed for his first professional contract to El Paso. El Paso played him quite a bit. He did very well. And then he was moved on to Real Salt Lake for, I think, a fee. I actually am not too sure, but I believe that they had to buy out his contract. Regardless, I think that is the model that El Paso is actually going for. And they did just sign a couple more players from their academy or other academies. So these are, 16, 17, 18-year-old players. It's not going to be a whole team full of Tate Johnsons, so to speak, but they are going to try and get these players minutes and they're going to try and sell them along. So, in terms of them winning, it's probably not going to be as much as they would like out there in El Paso, but still exciting to watch. And I think that it'll be good for us to go out there and experience what it's like, even if it's not me.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good way to put it, but El Paso is, I don't know, like you said, it should be 3 points that we should win, should gain, but those conditions are challenging, James. I mean, we've seen it in the past where we go out to a field that's just not very good. The team does not play as they usually do, so it could be a challenging game. On that note, Las Vegas Lights, the next time we play away, July 1st. This is a really weird story. It's a weird club as a whole. They don't have anybody. Like at one point in this offseason, I don't think they signed a single player. I think it's pretty recently that they signed players at all. They signed forward Pato Botello, center back Zach Carroll, and midfielder Tabor Tataka Preston. But they also lost like essentially their entire team from last season, in addition to key players like Danny Trejo and notable Tampa Bay Rowdy legends forward Cal Jennings, who's now come back to the Florida area to play for your Tampa Bay Rowdies. Weird team, James. I really don't know what to make of them other than that they're bad and we should win this game. But the field sucks, so who knows?
Yeah, I'm looking at their roster here now, and it's not. I don't know. They, like you said, they hadn't signed anybody for a long time. I think that all of these signings that they have made were announced within the last month. Quite frankly, we should roll over this team. That is difficult to say when it's March 2nd and this game is so far away, and we're going to have so much on our plate before we ever have a chance to even look at Las Vegas on the calendar. But yeah, this is not a good team. Even in nets, they just announced a signing there, so they have a player from Inter Miami's academy. He was just with their MLS Next Pro team last year. And then they signed a player on loan from River Plate, but it's a player who's only ever made one appearance, and he's 23 years old to be their starting goalkeeper, most likely. That's not to say he's a bad goalkeeper. I mean, he's obviously going to be better than I would ever be, anywhere near. I don't want to, I always hate discussing whether players are good or bad players, because it's like, I've never made it anywhere near half of what, the level these guys have played at. But still, when you're comparing it to Tampa Bay Rowdies professionals, it's just not going to be the same level. And I kind of feel for the Las Vegas fans, honestly. I went out to Las Vegas when they were our season finale. I guess it would be 2 years ago now. And that was the regular season. So we went out there, and it was like also close to Halloween. So they had, everybody was wearing costumes and everything. And we got together, the Rowdies fans that went out there, and we hung out and tailgated with the Las Vegas Lights fans. It was just a really cool group of guys. They had, all of the people there had kind of met through either going to these games or going to the US M&T games that had been held out in Las Vegas during the tournament that summer. So they were all soccer fans, and they just wanted, they wanted a team to support. And unfortunately, this is kind of the BS that they have to put up with. But I don't know what else to say at this point. I feel for them, and I hope things pick up at some point. But right now, they're not even sure, during the offseason if their team is coming back sometimes. So at least they have a team. I will say that.
Yeah, it feels like they're not like being taken seriously sometimes by their own like staff or whatever, because it's crazy. How do you go that long without signing a player in the offseason and let go of your entire whatever? It's pretty sad, and really, there's a question of how long that team even stays around at this point, because if the front office isn't taking themselves seriously, who will, right? It was funny for a little bit, I'd say, when they did this whole like llama bit and they would do all this wacky stuff at the games. Now it's just kind of weird. Like now it's just like, come on, guys, like give us something
I feel like it'd be funnier if they had all the wacky stuff at their games, but they also had like a team that they put out on the field that was like good. If the players scored 5 goals a game and then one of their celebrations was to go and jump on the pitch side mattresses because that's one of their marketing deals, then fine, that's cool. But they don't, they're never going to score. It just sucks.
Yeah, I really don't know what to make of them, but I don't know. We should win. That's all that matters, I guess, for us. But I think we can move on from them to the Oakland Roots. Fascinating team out west that will be playing at home on July 8th. Really interesting team. They had a decent team last year. They finished in 7th with 11 wins. USL gives their playoff odds 46%, and they are projected to finish in 10th in the conference. So not very good. A team we should win, I think, against. They did lose forwards in Otar Carlson, fullback Juan Asokar, and a name that we should all be familiar with at this point, a midfielder in Charlie Dennis, who has been playing kind of on the wing for us during this preseason. Now Tampa Bay Rowdies player. Really excited to see what he brings to our roster. As far as additions go, forward Anouar Pelaez on the top of center midfielder Irakoze Donaciano. That's the name I'm going to put out. On top of that, you have center midfielder Napo Matsoso. James, what do you make of the Oakland Roos? Because I really don't know what to make of them. It seems like they got maybe a little bit worse and losing some of their better players. So I don't know. I really don't know. I think they dropped off a little bit from where they were last season. It looked like they had a chance to build on something last season, and they kind of maybe blew it. I don't know.
I think that this is an ambitious ownership group that is not taking its sweet time, but they're not hurrying up either, right? So, they want to do something out there in Oakland, and they want to do it their way. And they want to make a cool brand, and they want to make sure that people are on board with the team overall. All of those things are very important, and they're very good goals. But in the meantime, they're not putting together the best roster to go out and, play soccer. I like Irakoze Donaciano just personally. He was a guy who went to UVA, and I saw him play there when I was, trying to watch some of the college soccer games that I can. He always looked good. I was kind of hoping that the Rowdies would sign him because, again, just a player I like. But, is he going to contribute to every game and help them, win? Probably not at this point. He's still getting used to the pro level, certainly, and that takes a little bit of time. I don't think that they replaced even the guys that they lost, like you said, like Otar Carlson. He's they're not gonna. They don't have goals that they're going to get from a player like him now. So I want them to do better in terms of, again, the brand, the team, everything they're trying to build. But they need to work more on literally the roster that they have and put a little more money into that if they actually want to go and win. And you have to build things up beforehand. So maybe that's where they're going right now. And they're focusing on that before they can say, hey, guys, we're going to go and try and make the playoffs every year. We're going to go try and win the Western Conference every year. We're going to go try and see if we can win the league. Build off of it and, get more fans. Fair enough. But I would like us to get 3 points here.
Yeah, I think you summarized it well. They have a lot of potential with that brand and everything. It feels like they're marketing themselves pretty well.
Yeah.
That being said, we should beat them. Home game against a mid team at best should be 3 points for us. Monterey Bay is our second to last Western Conference opponent. It's a home game, the reverse of last season's game, which was away out there. Another team that doesn't seem to be, I don't know, maybe not super ambitious, but that being said, USL Tactics gives them a 91% playoff odds percentage with a projected conference rank of 4th in the conference, which personally is a little surprising. Maybe they picked up some other players I'm not familiar with, but last season they finished in 12th. They did not do too well at all. They're bringing back most of their core, so I guess they have something to build on. And they added midfielder Alex Dixon and center back Alex Lara, 2 good players who have serious quality that, I don't know, can add something to the team. That being said, are they enough to make that jump from 12th to 4th? I'm skeptical. I feel like this is a game we should win. And I'm very skeptical about that jump. So maybe they get better because they have that core to build off of. But it feels to me like that's a pretty big jump that I'm not fully buying into yet. What do you think, James?
So I think that, like you said, this isn't the best roster that we're going to see in USL. They do have a team that is mostly returning from the season before, so that's going to help, certainly. Rowdies fans will know it's good to keep people from one season to the next. It means that people know what their habits are. They know what their preferences are. That's all going to change what they can or can't do with each other out on the field. But I think, honestly, if I'm looking at this team, what I'm seeing as their biggest positive factor is the fact that Frank Yallop is their coach and is back this year again after having been here last year. Frank Yallop is not the best coach in MLS's history, but he does have, some amount of success in MLS, and he has the history there. So I think that honestly what he just has is the resume to be able to put a team together and kind of make it work, even if it's not the best roster. That's actually what he did in MLS, in all honesty. But yeah, if they're going to do anything, it's going to be because they are defensively cohesive and kind of know how to score a goal every now and again while keeping the other team at 0. That's honestly what I see. But this is a home game for us in August. I would like us to probably go out and win that game.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like a winnable game. They should come, or I guess stay home with 3 points. Home game. Yeah. Last Western Conference opponent is none other than your USL champion. San Antonio FC is an away game to make it even more challenging on September 16th. As was noted here in our little notes, textbook case of the rich get richer. That being said, they do lack a bit of depth, but that's for another conversation. They finished in first, obviously, last season. Their playoff odds are listed at 100%, projected to finish in first in the Western Conference. They did win that USL championship against Louisville City. They lost a few players in center back Jaser Kamiri, forward Samuel Adeniran, and forward Santiago Patino. They also added fullback Juan Asokar, forward Nico Hansen, and forward Kimarni Smith. Kimarni Smith is a name in particular that I think will add a lot. I don't know how much more you can add, honestly, at San Antonio, but a guy that can really bring something to this team. Bring something more to this team, because they're already a fantastic squad, and I think Kimarni Smith in particular will be I guess it's one of the rich get richer situations, right? I mean, he's a really, really good player. So to see him end up in San Antonio FC is kind of like, what the hell? Like, how did nobody else pick him up? I mean, there's no reason he should be over there. But they're a really, really good team, and that addition is only going to make them maybe even better. I really don't know how much better they can get, James.
Well, also Santiago Patino is going to be interesting, but at the same time, with how many players that they're bringing back from their championship winning season, how much lower can you go? Even if you lose a player like that, I think that Juan Asokar is going to be very important. He was at times looking to be the best player on his team from last season. And if San Antonio played the same kind of style that they did last year, where they don't have a lot of the ball and they try to break out and then, get a goal on the counter every now and again, Juan Asokar can do that. He's going to probably end up doing that. Nico Hansen and Kimarni Smith both have MLS USL championship in between experience, and they're both going to be very good players at this level, obviously. So yeah, I think that San Antonio want to retain the trophy. It's going to be very difficult to do just naturally, but they can try for it, and it's entirely possible that they do. I don't know. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, I think if there's a game that I can predict an L on, it would be this game. I mean, I don't care how good we are. It's hard to go out to San Antonio and get a win.
It's just hard, yeah.
It's hard to go out to San Antonio and get a tie. So, yeah, this will be a tough game. If we lose this game, I'm probably okay with it. It's a regular season game against San Antonio in San Antonio. It's tough. This is probably, I was noticing a trend in that a lot of the tougher teams in the West we get at home, thankfully. This is the notable exception. So I think it's reasonable to possibly expect a loss in this game. But, this game it feels like an eternity away. So we can put it off for a while and think about that when we get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully by then we will be an even more fluid and coherent team. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to, but we shall see. All right, Carlos, I think it is time that we move on to our extra time segment. And unfortunately, we do have to start it with a bit of bad news. We already went through all the preseason games that we had not covered previously. So let's just go ahead and move into the rough stuff here. Jordan Scarlett has obviously left the Rowdies. Everybody knows that, but he has now signed for a new team. And that team is Louisville City, our Eastern Conference rival. Something like this was probably bound to happen, in all honesty, Carlos. He's a very good defender, as you and I well know. He might not be what Neil Collins was looking for in terms of what appeared to be a depth piece at this point. his salary might be a little bit too high for that. And I saw some speculation online that if Josh Winder is supposed to leave Louisville City in the summer, Jordan Scarlett could be the guy to kind of pick up the slack at that point. It would make sense. He is probably going to be a starting caliber defender in the USL Championship. And if the Rowdies don't want to include him in that, then, he should be free to go and look for it. It's just really unfortunate that it turned out to be Louisville City where he found a potential starting position.
Yeah. There's not much else you can say about that. Jordan Scarlett's a fantastic player, and he deserves to be on a really good club. He's up there with one of the best defenders, some of the best defenders in the league. Really, really tough that we couldn't keep him. But that being said, we already have a pretty stacked back line going into the season. So it's a tough loss, but it is what it is, and I think we'll be okay, James.
Yeah, as you said, he's a good soccer player. He's also a great guy. Everything. I think everyone who kind of interacts with Jordan Scarlett will say that he's a good guy, but unfortunately, I have to wish him the worst when it comes to our games against them. So
it's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah. The last thing here, I have an article out on, it's a fun article. It is on the Sunrunner in St. Pete and how you should use it to get to Rowdies games. So please do check that out. It should be up now. And we will probably end it here for the week. Carlos, you got anything else that we need to include at this point?
No. I can only share my excitement for the beginning of the season incoming, James. We are 9 days away from that first game against Indy 11 at home. It's Indy 11, right? I'm not making that up. Variety of headlines there that I'm sure will be very prevalent as we get closer to that game. So so excited. It's gonna be a good one, and I think we can pull out a win in the opening game. I do remember last time I went to a home opener against Indy 11. It was a 1-1 draw. That was back in our NASL days. So maybe we get an improved performance on that. But that being said, we can save that talk for next week.
Absolutely. So thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We always appreciate it when you do. Please follow RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and, of course, YouTube. You can also find me on Twitter. I am at RBLR James K. What about you, Carlos?
Yeah, I'm at Carlos TPA10 on Twitter. Come drop a follow, even though I know I've been complaining a lot about Georgetown basketball. I think I put out good content. So come start the conversation on Carlos TPA10.
There you go. And, of course, if you have any questions, we always appreciate that. So please use the hashtag AskRBLR. We will answer anything that you ask of us. And like and subscribe to our podcast. We're on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app. We are on Apple and Google Podcasts. And like you have seen now, you are available, or we are available on YouTube as well as all other major podcast platforms. So please check us out wherever you are. We are too. For 1 week before the season starts, come on, you Rowdies.
Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.